All right, everyone. Well, hey, it looks like we're live. I want to welcome everyone to another edition of the Exponential Growth Podcast. Today, it's an honor to have a dear friend with me, many decades working together in a couple different companies, Oracle being one of them. That's roughly almost $1 trillion company. We're very close to there, at least the last couple months. But a strong career in many technology companies, a lot of leadership roles. Is now has a senior leadership role within really one of the world's leading companies, multi-trillion-dollar company. Actually, I think it was 2.6 trillion or so the last
Yeah,
time I
close to
checked. In
three.
terms of yeah, okay, yeah, who's what's a couple million amongst friends. But it's an honor to have with us today a leader at Amazon Web Services, Juan Carlos Gutierrez. Juan Carlos, welcome.
Thank you, David. What a great honor to be with you again today and talk about technology and people, innovation. So super blessed to be here with you. So thank you for having me, David.
Excellent. So this is it's amazing because it's just really amazing because we're at a time, who 10, 15 years ago, who would have ever thought that we'd have $1 trillion companies out there, companies that have reached this valuation, $1 trillion companies, and now there's a handful of them, right? But the what I found is the interesting thing about them is it's one of the things that drives them to become $1 trillion. Culture is a lot of it, but there's a lot of different things that make this happen. And so we want to dig deep in your perspective and experiences because you've worked at a lot. You've worked at leading consulting companies that are advising companies how to reach it. You've worked at Oracle in a leadership role at Oracle, and obviously now you're at Amazon, right? And so you have a lot of interesting perspectives there. So when you think of building $1 trillion culture and building $1 trillion organization and company, one, what are the big, just we'll jump into Amazon, but what are your just kind of like your overall overarching themes when you do that?
So in general, David, I think it starts with a clear mission and a clear purpose, and also that is sustainable for the long term and not go with the flow, lacking a purpose, and you don't know where you go, because that if you have that at the beginning, then it's going to be hard to sustain growth and really having a long-term impact. And what I see in Amazon differently, and jumping a little bit on that, is that the mission that Amazon has as a company, which is being the most customer-centric company on earth, has been the same since the foundation of Amazon. So we haven't changed that mission to adapt to the new the new times, or impacted by new trends. Has been the same mission. And when you see the mission being the most customer-centric company on earth, that's actually one of the great secrets of Amazon, because it allows you to invest in rocket science, or also satellites, and not only e-commerce, and Alexa businesses, because all that is going to come listening to customers and working backwards, which is the other part. So having that mission super critical, and that's to me the key, the key point. For sure, having founders and executives that are you know incredible human beings with long-term vision, like Bezos, that Larry Ellison, as you mentioned, Oracle, Elon Musk. So those are Steve Jobs, are really drivers of a long-term vision that convince a lot of us to go together. And
Yeah.
that's a key component to having that top leader with a clear long-term vision and long-term mission. But I would say that's
And
the
a
first
bold vision, right? I mean, these are kind of bold,
point.
right? Bold visions, right? And these aren't just, very small visions. These are bold, ambitious visions, right?
Exactly. So that's the first one, and then the culture itself. That you can improve that over time. So it's pretty hard to define a culture at the beginning. You start with some key values or leadership principles, how we call it in Amazon, and those are key. And then you evolve over time. That part is okay to evolve. Today, for example, in Amazon, we have 16 leadership principles, 16 LPs. We had before eight, 10. We went to 12, and now we have 16. The two of them were added during the pandemic because we found out that it was important to add, for example, the LP of being the best Earth employer, and making sure that as an employer we keep talent and attract talent. So that was one. And the last one, which is being involved in the communities and making sure that you pay back to the communities. So those two were added at during the pandemic. In some others, we refine it, we change it a little bit, but it's important to have leadership principles. And what is also super interesting in building that culture, as you mentioned it at the beginning, David, for a $1 trillion business that I don't think we imagined in Amazon to be $1 trillion company at the beginning, for sure not.
Yeah.
But it was big, think big and having a long-term impact. But what is important on those LPs is that they are global. Those leadership principles are not for a Seattle small team, a group, or or for international we have other LPs, or for this business we have other LPs. No, they are really the leadership principle for the whole company. And we can go deeper a little bit what it means, but that's a key component of the culture. And when we talk about culture, we talk about mission, we talk
Hmm.
about LPs. We have something else that sometimes we don't go deeper. We call it tenets, which is like a subcategory. So a tenet is a
Now
set
that's a
of
subcategory of what, the leadership principles.
right, but they are more dynamic, and you build it for that's a key secret in Amazon. You build it based on your own business, and they're pretty dynamic. A set of tenants will be like, for example, the call center team. They can come with five tenants. For example, answer every call in less than 24 hours. That will be like a way of working in the team. Another one could be, for example, for the technology team, we balance family with customers, and then that defines how you operate as a small team. But that is under the leadership principles, and that is under the mission. It's like having the constitution,
Yeah.
laws, and then
Now your state, maybe your
local.
state constitution or something, right?
Exactly. And then the county, laws.
Mhm.
So kind of that. But it is important in the local teams also to have those tenets, because we value, um, proximity to the customers in everything that we do, and working backwards. So having that proximity to the local customers, to your retail customers, to your Alexa customers, to your AWS customers, and answer that fast and adapt it to the customer is super important. So in Amazon, other companies may have different ways, David.
Yeah.
The Amazon way of proximity to customers and working backwards creates this bottom-up culture. So from the customer to the top, instead of from the top to the customer. And that is interesting because it's like a startup. And our CEO Andy Jassy, he basically asked us to behave as a startup. And
Yeah.
we think ourselves as probably the biggest startup on earth. But we are a startup that is always reinventing and changing and evolving, and having this day one mentality as a startup, and which is interesting. The day one mentality, it
Yeah.
is
What is
based.
that? So
What does that
like
mean?
every you always hear Amazon talk about day one, day. Oh,
Yeah.
it's day one. Is it what? Tell these listeners out there what the heck that means. What does day one mean?
Yeah, so day one, a simple way to say it is, imagine that you're starting in the company today, and it is the day one. And what happens is that you basically have this emotion that the future is open to be built, that it is okay not having all the answers because you are building them. You can be a little bit of a scrappy because maybe you don't have all the systems implemented because you're just opening the company, and maybe you don't have all the reports or you don't have all the tools, but it's okay. You're gonna build it, and you need this builder mentality and founders mentality that you're gonna create it. And then you basically, when you operate like that, you are against bureaucracy. You are against things like, hey, this is the way that we do it, and we
This is
we,
the way
we
we've
don't change
always
it.
done it. This is the way we've
Yeah,
always done
no, that we call that day two. There is a famous video
it. So now you
from
have day two.
day two. There is a
Day two
famous
thinking,
video.
right? You got, oh, that's day two thinking, man. That's day two
Exactly.
thinking.
Yeah, there is a famous video from Jeff Bezos, like, hey Jeff, what is a day two mentality? And he comes and says, well, let me tell you what happened. Day two, you are starting to be slow. You don't move fast. You evaluate everything before you take an action, and at the end, you are dead. So, so basically, companies after day two are going to die eventually, versus day one, which is no. Let me reinvent it again, re-energize it again. So that's the difference. And when we see signals, because it's a Amazon is a 1.5 million employee company, so
Wow.
it's huge. So a lot of employees. Um, sometimes we have day two signals, like it's natural. We grow, but the important thing is that when we see those day two um, signals or maybe internal processes, we escalate it, and then we push back. There is one of the LPs that we have that
Yeah.
is have backbone, disagree, and commit. So it is expected to actually have backbone in meetings and in the way you operate. So it is expected. And when you have a backbone, it's like, for example, no, this hiring process is taking longer, than expected. So we need to move fast. We need to make a decision.
Yeah. And
We're
you have the
taking
freedom to say that. Like in a lot of cultures, a lot of companies, you got to be nice and a little bit politically
that.
correct and all that kind of stuff. And that it's like very day two type mentality, right?
Exactly. Yeah, here it is expected. Actually, I didn't mention that, but the LPs, everybody gets evaluated versus the LPs, how you behave. You actually get higher in Amazon, and we have a flywheel of employees. How people evolve in Amazon, but you get higher based on the culture and based your or
You're fit to the culture, right?
how you fit to the culture and to the LPs, and we evaluate all that. So, for example, if you don't have backbone, then you're gonna have a gap in the culture, and then you receive feedback, and then as human beings, it is expected to listen, to change and adapt, but it's really expected. Just like it is expected, to have a speed bias for action is what we call the LP.
I
So
love
it
that.
is.
By the way, I love that one. I always say, the bias for action, right? So many times people, like I say, they admire the problem, they talk about the problem, they think about what if around the problem, but they never. It's like take act. I mean, I was like, it's almost better to take action, even if it's not right, but you need to move in it than just to kind of just sit and admire the problem in committee after
Exactly.
committee. It's,
Exactly. In the concept of innovation, so when we talk about the culture, we have the mission, the LPs, and from those LPs, from those 16, when we talk about the culture that innovates and move us to this 3 billion, valuation, um, bias for action is one of the key ones. So because bias for action, when you read what the LP says, it is speed matters. Speed matters in business, and it is okay to try. And we have this analogy of a one-way door or two-way doors, and the ways that we decide. And let me explain you that a little bit.
yeah,
So when imagine that you are in a room and you have this door. One-way door is one door that you go and you go to the next room, but you cannot come back. So it's a one-way door. And a two-way door is one, you go and you can come back. So like those doors in in the lobbies of the hotel, for
Yeah.
example.
Yeah.
So that's a two-way door. So what happens is that we think 70% of the decisions are two-way doors. And so you and when and two-way doors are decisions that you can take it, and if it doesn't work, you can come back. So and it's okay to fail fast. So for example, I'm gonna build a report, and the report doesn't have all the data. I try it, I show it. Well, no, that doesn't work. We build this other report, just cancel. Okay, next. But I did it, and then I move. Or I need to build an architecture in my team for a customer, and then we propose the first one, and then we validate it. We get input, and then we improve. So two-way doors are those are, again, those decisions that you can take and come back, and it is okay. One-way door are the ones that are longer and more complicated. For example, opening a data center, opening a region. You need to analyze, taxes, water, energy, it's building a property. That takes time. So you need all the data to make sure that you go a little bit more slow in that, because that's a long-term implication. Once you build a data center, you're going to be there for
Yeah. You'll be there a while.
decades,
And I
decades.
saw the one in South Bend, by the way.
Yes,
That's not too far from where I'm at, and it's obviously Notre Dame country. So I saw that
that's
one.
awesome.
Kudos, good, smart move there.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, a
Yeah.
lot of good talent in Indiana for sure, and a lot of good talent close to Notre Dame and close to where you are.
There you go.
Super. Yeah. So bias for action, one of the key LPs for innovation. Another one, it is invent and simplify.
Mm.
So there is one of the 16 LPs that says that. So what it means is that everybody in Amazon. So by the way, I didn't clarify that the leadership principles, they apply to every Amazonian, to every employee.
Right. This is not for
Even
the leaders, like
it's not
an
so
analyst,
it's
the
not
person
only
who's sweeping the floor at one of your warehouses, right?
Yeah, totally. I mean, the drivers. I mean, people in the fulfillment centers. Everybody in Amazon um, applies and use the LPs on a daily basis. Actually, so it is how you behave in Amazon. It's not the difference that I found. In Amazon versus other cultures is that these LPs, they are really active in people, and you see, the longer Amazonians, the more examples in that behavior. And in tenure in Amazon is actually a great thing. Tenure in Amazon means that okay, everybody has experienced these LPs over the years, and you become a culture keeper and a culture reference. And independent of the level, so somebody that has 5, 10, 15, 20 years in Amazon, it's going to tell so many stories about the LPs and why do we behave like this. It is super important. It is actually amazing for everybody to connect with tenure Amazonians. But the point is, all the LPs, they apply to everybody. To your point, it's not only to managers, to executives, to people in Seattle, everybody. So invent and simplify. It is actually expected that everybody in Amazon innovates. Everybody. So it is expected that everybody invents, creates, or simplifies something that exists. So how you do that? Basically, in addition that is expected, we give you tools. Everybody's a builder in Amazon. We also call it that way. Everybody's a builder. And with tools, you can create from simple things, reports, but you can create new mechanisms. You can create new ways of doing business. You can create new roles and experiment with that. And then if it works, it scales. And that's because it's a bottom-up culture that when you experiment and you have data, and then that data shows that there is impact, then you can scale that. And but it's expected that you do that, and we evaluate, everybody based on those LPs, and what are you building new, what are you improving, what are you taking. So it's not a passive culture, it's actually a very active culture in innovation. And it's contagious. The great thing is that we do internal hackathons, we do internal builders league and competition for people create new scenes. And now with AI, you can imagine, so everybody's actually building agents. Everybody is expected that you build an agent, and with that agent you can, send better emails, or send better summaries, and that's everybody: operations team, finance team, not only developers. So it is super aligned with the LP. So that's the second one that I will say is super important in innovation: bias for action, and as I said, invent and simplify.
Yeah.
And
And
yeah,
JC, one thing I wanted to touch on there, and it's kind of like I didn't know that. But it's if you think about, you've got these leadership principles, and it's for everybody, but it's not like a lot of organizations. Yeah, they have some leadership principles and stuff. They sometimes it's for everybody, but there isn't the kind of this, like I call it, this reinforcing factor daily, like reinforcing factor that you have, and and then they're evaluating people on it, right? And I've been in a lot of different companies, right? And I think that doing that, having it for everybody, doing it daily, evaluating people, people telling stories around it, reinforcing it. I think this is, I mean, look, creating $1 trillion is not easy, right? And I
yeah,
think this is like a secret for those who are listening. I believe like this is a secret sauce
yeah,
of what
actually,
is
yes.
one of them. I mean, there's a couple others we'll go through, but I think it's a secret sauce in how it shapes the culture, right? I mean, it's a
Yep.
really strong culture, and like you said, the people who've been around it 20 years, they got a lot of stories they can reinforce and ever. So I think it's a great, just a key area of what's made Amazon $1 trillion culture.
Absolutely. And then, but then you have, I call it the four pillars of building this culture of innovation and $1 trillion culture. So the mission, the LPs are one component. It's the culture. But then we have, with the culture, we have mechanisms. So in that is actually another part of the secret sauce. What is a mechanism? It is a process that has, an input and output, right? Has a tool that to facilitate the process. Is not a document. It is actually a tool with a description, an input and output, and a way to evaluate it continuously to do it better. So one mechanism that we have, that it is, by the way, the mechanisms could be global mechanisms, could be a local mechanism that is only for your team in the call center, for example, customer support, or could be a global mechanism. One global mechanism that is very popular in Amazon is how we hire in Amazon. And the hiring process has something internally that we call the bar raising process. And what it means is that the definition of the mechanism in Amazon to hire is that every position in Amazon, and not only AWS, in Amazon, we hire to somebody that is going to be better than 50% of the people that is having that position today. So we hire to raise the bar, and that is why it's called bar raising process. So hiring, again, somebody better than 50% of the people that today has that job. How do you do that? Basically, you need interviewers that are calibrated. So we go through to a process that every interviewer is certified. Actually, we do that at the beginning of your tenure in Amazon because we expect everybody to participate in hiring process. And that's interesting. Let me jump to one of the LPs. Remember the 16 LPs?
Yeah.
One of the LPs is hire and develop the best. Hire and develop the best. So what it means is that everybody is expected to participate in the hiring process and developing others. So it's not only managers, and that is actually pretty powerful. So it's not only the managers, it's not only the leaders, yeah, or it's not only HR that you subcontract the hiring process and somebody else is going to hire for you. You have to be involved in the hiring process. It
Yeah.
is expected. What the consequence of that is that you are always reinforcing the culture because you are hiring somebody that is going to be aligned with the culture. You participate in the hiring process, you interview, you ask questions, and you have always top of mind. It's like your brain,
Yeah.
and your neural connections are always aligned with the culture because
Yeah.
you're always asking, talking, the vocabulary. And when you reinforce words that are aligned with the culture, you are always thinking about the culture. The hiring process is one of them.
Yeah.
And so what happens is that all the interviewers are calibrated. We have a set of questions that we use to align with the culture. Over time, you get. I had been in Amazon for, I didn't mention that at the beginning, but close to 6 years, and I have done 250 interviews over the years,
Wow.
250, and it's not that big compared with others. It's not that, it's not a low amount, but puts me in a good spot. But I'm a bar racer. What in Amazon? What is a bar racer? Going through the process, you have these interviewers, five, six people. Each one is gonna have a different angle. So we eliminate bias in the hiring process because you complement. One is gonna go technical, another one is gonna go maybe with this area, LPs, whatever, international experience, whatever. So we have this, and then one of the interviewers is a bar racer. So it's like basically the one that have a veto in the process and make sure that we hire through the standards. So we eliminate biases that like, hey, this is my friend. I know he's gonna do a good job. Well, let's have everybody having the same opinion, and then the bar raiser is going to be the judge, making sure that this is aligned with the culture in the Amazon. It's pretty interesting because you can veto, candidates where, for example, trust, which is earned trust, is one of the LPs,
Yeah.
didn't demonstrate earned trust in the process, or it is not customer obsessed as we want, which is another of the LPs. Actually, the number one is customer obsession.
Yeah.
So if you are not customer obsessed in Amazon, you're gonna have a hard time. And some cultures are different, and it's okay. Some other companies are maybe product obsessed, technology obsessed. They push technology. They think technology is the most important driver. We think it's the customer,
Yeah.
and the customer is the most important, you know, priority. We work backwards from the customer, and then we solve the problems with technology. Yeah, we use technology, but maybe we use ISPs, we use partners. Maybe we don't use technology. We change processes with the customer, but we work backwards from that, and that's a different behavior. So going back to the interview process, we may find out in the interview that some people are not going to have that match. Okay? So that's another secret. The mechanisms like hiding. There
Yeah.
is another key mechanism that is working backwards, as I was
Yeah.
mentioning,
So
and that's
before we
the
go to working backwards,
yeah,
I
yeah,
just
sorry.
want to let's just on the hiring. It's
Go
really,
ahead.
I mean, so I think it's a big area for trillion-dollar companies is talent and how they think about talent. I think that approach is it's a bit it's I don't say it's unique, but it's the mentality of it where you're because you think about it, every hire you bring in, think about the math on this, by the way. Every hire you bring in is 50%, whatever, better, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
uplifting the team 50% better. You can just do the math on that. And the mentality and how people think. And even if you're whatever, 80% true on that, 50% true, it's gonna have a that mentality is going to have a huge impact on the culture, right? So this,
yeah.
like, for those who are listening, when you're this hiring thing is really vitally important if you're going to create and how you map it to the leadership principles and what the Amazon secret sauce here for hiring is a key component. So JC, I just wanted to kind of share a little bit more perspective on there and how
Yeah, no,
important
no, you are
how
you
key
you
that is.
You're totally right. That's again, that's why it's one of those pillars. I mean, again, culture, people. To your point, people, mechanisms. I was using an example of a mechanism with the hiding process, but you're totally right on the people side. And then I'll talk a little bit later about technology. But let me shift to people.
Yeah.
So hiring is the beginning. Hiring is actually the beginning, and we have this flywheel with people is just like we have with customers in the
Uh-huh.
culture. The customer is at the center of everything that we do. And we have a customer flywheel approach in the culture part that evolves what we do with the customer continuously. With people and talent, we have the same. So we have builders, everybody's a builder. So what happens after you get hired is that it is expected that you continuously get better. And that's why we have this leadership principle called learn and be curious. Learn and be curious. So, and we validate that from the beginning, from the hiring process. That is actually, David, personally, one of my favorite LPs, and probably one of the reasons you see all the books in the back, and you're a book writer, you
Yeah,
have books in the back too,
a
yours,
reader,
I see
thousands
yours
of
over there.
books I've read.
So we share that LP, right? Learning is super important, and curiosity. Well, if you don't have that continuously in Amazon, you're gonna have a hard time too. And what happens is that it is expected that you continuously get certifications, proactivity to get, for example, in agentic these days in AI, you need to be savvy in Gen AI and agentic. It's not an if you do it or if you have time. It is expected, but it should be natural. Should be, your curiosity should be a natural LP, not and you need to be curious and look for new things and build and invest. That's why it's super related with innovation. So what happened in the people flywheel is that we review that every 6 months. So we have a process and we review where you are. We review it once a year, also more in more details, and we expect that people grows in every LP, but in learn and be curious is one of those key ones. And I was talking about hiring, developing yourself and developing others is also part of that LP. And that
Yeah.
means to be a mentor to others, to make sure that you develop your organization, that you develop leaders. And in something that is pretty interesting in Amazon is that we have a lot of rotations internally. I never found out openness in a company like Amazon. It is actually expected that you go from this job, and then 2 3 years after you move to this other job and you grow and learn other things, and you see a lot of people that has been very successful in Amazon, moving from Amazon.com, Alexa, AWS, or from sales to tech size, and then to sales or HR. It's pretty interesting, and
Yeah.
even internationally moving around. So because you develop new skills, and that is expected. So let me stop there. That's
Yeah.
the people
No,
side.
and I would say too, hey, Jay, you could be at Whole Foods someday too, right? No,
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it could
Yeah,
be,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Who knows? But the thing is, you would
The
bring.
CIO of Whole Foods is Hispanic, by the way. No?
Oh, really?
It's a,
Okay,
it's
cool.
a Brazilian, yeah. It's a Brazilian
So,
company.
like, but think about it too. You would bring a different lens on the problem. You would bring you have leadership principles. They can shift, right? You're going to have a different curiosity, a new way of looking at things. I mean, if that happens. So yeah, no, definitely get that.
So then that development again, you get evaluated, you get the tools. As a leader, you develop your teams. So that's the whole cycle, and that's the people side. But also, we organize people for success. Let me continue on the people side. So you develop talent, hire and develop the best, but you organize for success. And we have this concept in Amazon as a startup, that we have these small teams that we call it the two pizza teams.
Oh,
The
that's
two
right.
pizza
That's
teams.
the other part of that two pizza. Yeah,
The
that's
two
right.
pizza team. So it's pretty famous these days, but just to share with the audience, the two pizza teams are small teams, usually between 8 to 12. So flexible. That's why it's not an exact number. 8 to 12. That they get fed with two pizzas, right? So you can think about two pizzas, and then at least each one, you take one slide or two, and then you get fed, right? So that's the whole idea. But they are small teams, pretty autonomous, diverse, empowered, and they are expected to work in initiative for projects, and then be very fast, successful, fail, learn, and then scale. So if and then you have other two pizza teams, and then you have multiple two pizza teams, and we group the two pizza teams with a concept that is called the single threaded leaders. And then you have multiple pizza, like let me give you an example. You may have a two pizza team in Brazil, and another two pizza team in Mexico, and then you have a single threader leader for Latam, and then you have another one global. But each one of those, they have autonomy to move fast and make their own decisions, and invent locally. Going back to the invent and simplify, for example, invent new ways of engage with customers, or reuse and then simplify. So that is on the people side. Another component: key people and talent, and key way of organizing. So that's how we do there. On the mechanisms, let me give you another example of mechanisms. I talk about hire and develop. The other one that is very related with innovation and building the culture for the long term, it is called the working backwards mechanism.
Working
What is
back.
that? Yeah, working backwards.
Or almost like a Covey, begin with the end in mind.
It is very similar to that. One of the seven,
Habits.
exactly. In one of the seven habits, work with very similar. Now, has the details with that mentality from Covey of what do you do in that one, and it's basically the mechanism has some artifacts. So, as I was defining earlier, an input, an output, and a tool. And tools are artifacts. They come with artifacts too. So the first one is um, we have what is called a press release, a PR. What is that? So you interview your customers, and it could be an external customer, could be an internal customer. Okay, so it could be your internal team. We do that actually in our internal planning. And you have this press release. What is a press release? It's a document. It's a one page. I will talk about documentation in a bit, but it's a one page that put you in, let's say, 2, 3 years from now. And so imagine we're in 2025, and David, maybe you have a requirement. You want to think about the future of agents for for one specific business, and so you think about yourself in 2028, and then that's the press release, and then you're gonna launch a new service in 2028 called, I don't know, agentic advisory. So you have the agentic advisor in 2028, and then you describe how is that service, like it is in the newspaper, and then you have some anecdotes from early customers, like since I've been using Argentine Advisor, my revenue has grown 50%. I'm super happy, my ROI, whatever. And then some features are described. It's simple. It's a one page, but creates like that. Wow! Now I get it. I position myself in the future and work backwards. It comes also with an FAQ, like any product has a frequent questions and answer FAQ.
Frequently asked questions.
Um, in like for example, how do you price it? It is available international, or can I try it for 90 days? Whatever. You can have different FAQs that you think about the customer and you are answering those questions. So that helps to clarify the expectation from the beginning. And it's super powerful as a mechanism, because everybody gets aligned, and then you build, based on that, you build a proof of concept, you build a prototype. Now with agentic, you can imagine that process working backwards is like a boom, you can do it in 2 days actually. So you ask, press release, and now you have an agent that can show that minimal lovable product, as we call it in the MLP.
Minimal viable product. Yeah.
Yeah, we call it lovable now.
No, lovable.
Yeah, it's not only that it's valuable, but you love it. It's like a minimum lovable product, and then you can go to production after that. But working backwards is that mechanism that helps you to plan, to make a budget based on this. Then you define budgeting, budgetary estimates and all that. So very powerful in innovation. And by the way, every service in Amazon, including AWS, every services that we launch, every new thing, it is based on the same mechanism.
It's
And
powerful. It's very
super
powerful
powerful.
because you think about it. You have everybody with every service thinking 3 years out. Call it creating some excitement, crystallizing a vision, and then now obviously then now you have to fill in the gaps. But but everybody's kind of aligned and they know where they're going. But it's a bit exciting, right? You read a press release. Press releases aren't boring. They're usually like exciting. They're customers. Everybody's celebrating. It's newsworthy, right? And so you're doing
Exactly.
this all, and it also maybe pushes people too, because usually people think you can do things a lot sooner. Things are a lot harder than they
Exactly.
seem on paper, right, to get done. But it also pushes you too. So I think it's a very, and our brains are very goal oriented as kind of humans, right? And I think you can get more alignment and get more efficiency on. So I think this is another key thing that I think is a secret sauce of Amazon, because nobody else is doing it. And by the way, I think one time I was consulting for Amazon, and we had to do, like, we had to walk in there, and this was part of what we've done. So I think that's a great one, JC.
Yeah, and the part that I highly mention is the document. So
Yeah,
let me
yeah,
go
yeah,
back.
yeah, yeah. Yeah,
So why do
these
you?
guys are crazy. Like, so
Yeah,
break
why
this
you
one
don't know
down,
a
because it's the
PowerPoint?
document. Reading the document,
Exactly.
hour meetings, 30 minutes of reading. This is like, so you all got to pay attention to this one. This is an amazing part of the culture secret sauce. Go ahead, JC.
Yes, and that is very different in Amazon. And to me personally, it was one of the things that everybody has to adapt a little bit and change your previous experiences. And I came from cultures, as you mentioned, from Oracle, PwC, big consulting firms where PowerPoint is the number one tool because you use it for internal presentations, for customer presentations, and you become good at building PowerPoints and also presenting, right? And but what happens is that when you use that internally, you don't have all the details because the details are with the speaker, the details are with your pitch, and then you can navigate some discussions based on the audience, especially if you are a good speaker. You read the audience and then you drive the conversation, right? Well, for business and internal decisions, that's not good because you are actually maybe taking longer to make a decision because everything is only with the speaker. So the culture with documents is that you put in a paper one pager plus FAQs, and we have different documents. 6 pagers for OP1s, which is the internal operating process that we have to require the planning for the following years. Uh, we document the hiring interviews that I was mentioning. To make a decision about hiring, everything goes documented. Okay, so it's not me talking. It's a narrative so we document that. Not a full narrative. We document it, but there is a big writing culture. And the consequence with that is that you basically equalize the knowledge to make a decision. Because and you go to a meeting basically and you read, the first 10, 20 minutes, a narrative. And then after that, you're ready to discuss and decide right away. Do we hire this person, for example? You read, you go to a debrief meeting, everything is writing. The bar raiser is gonna basically facilitate the decision. 30 minutes decision. So versus I don't know, let me find this other data point, I didn't get it. This candidate speaks Portuguese, I don't know, I forgot to ask. So you make decisions pretty quickly, and with innovation that happens with the going with the working hours, you have these documents and then you say, well, I like it, I saw the prototype, let's invest. Next, let's do a POC, put some money. So the writing culture is very powerful, another secret sauce, and it's global. And you know what, when you have people in Japan and when you globalize your business in Brazil, and you have documents, it is another way of really having a global culture, even though it's so in English or in Portuguese. Today we translate documents with agentic pretty easy, but the fact that it's in writing facilitates decisions and make us move faster as an startup. So that's another key component, Dave.
Yeah, and on that, yeah, I always, and then again, when I was consulting, I remember going into meetings and reading and doing all that for Amazon and AWS, and that's amazing. And you guys, and you announced earnings the other day, and so this is all public. You guys had an amazing, amazing quarter. A lot of growth. Obviously, your division, AWS, just the amount, whatever, multi-billion, multi-billions of dollars of growth. And anybody who's listening can Wall Street Journal and look at it. Just and this is like the when you're already huge and you're growing. I think it was 40% year over
Well,
year or something.
20 quarter of year over year by this quarter, close to 21%.
Okay, but is that the whole business or
AWS.
AWS? Okay,
AWS.
but that's growing off of like a huge number, and startups who are whatever in the millions of dollars ish or less are like kind of growing at that. So to be that big and continue to grow at those numbers is amazing, and it's the culture that drives that. So JC, I know you got a lot of things going on, right? You're leading an amazing division within AWS. Any last things you want to share with or maybe I don't know if there's you see anything live in the chat. I don't, but that doesn't mean there's not anything there. Any other questions? We have a couple minutes here.
Yeah.
Or anything else you want to share, JC, and I'll see if I can find
So
anything.
maybe quickly on the technology side. So I talk about culture, mechanisms, people. Let me go quickly on the technology, because technology really is also a secret sauce for innovation. And it started with Amazon really took off when we moved from a monolithic, on-prem, dinosaur kind of a technology to microservices, that dynamic technology that became AWS over the years. So what we learned internally, we externalized that and we created AWS, which is, the cloud technology.
It's
So
an amazing story too, by the way, like how it all, because of the Christmas holiday spikes and then the down, it's basically how AWS started.
Yeah, we learned about that elasticity internally, about how to manage the amount of infrastructure for peak seasons, and then what to do after that. All that learning over time, and with virtual machines and infrastructure became the core of AWS, and over 18 years we have been now adding more than services, more than 300 type of services, from storage, compute, AI, data. So we have more than 15 different type of databases, from relational graph, in memory. But at these days we are in
Redshift. I remember the one Redshift, right?
Yes, exactly.
Because it was an Oracle shifting it to AWS, right? The
Yeah.
red Oracle shifting it to AWS.
Yeah. So these days we are experiencing a tectonic change in technology, which is AI, right? And we are talking about agentic AI, Gen AI plus agentic AI. So maybe in a couple of years we're gonna add something additional to AI, because it's evolving really quickly. It's an exponential growth. So what I will go with the technology is that you need infrastructure and technology to be so flexible that you can embrace these daily changes. We have daily new models from DeepSeek, and then Anthropic, and then Meta, and of course OpenAI. So everybody's like launching the new model with the new benefits every day. So you need a platform. You need to think about a platform that models are you know basically depending of the use cases, and you need to have that flexibility that maybe a good model for video, you can use it for this use case, but that not necessarily is the best model for translations, and that's not the best model for a research or even for coding. So which is the number one use case of AI, is actually software
Writing
development.
code.
Yeah, writing code is the number one. So you need that flexibility in the technology platform that you have. So super important, but also you need a change of mindset, and I can close with that. A change of mindset in the builders regarding the technologies, how you shift from, and we move in the past from on-prem to cloud first mentality. Now it's from cloud first to AI first mentality, and that's a change. When you think about AI first mentality,
Yeah.
it is basically, I summarize it in 4 points to go quickly. the first one, you should challenge everything that you do with AI today proactively. So, if I use AI, I can summarize my doc better. I can, have maybe better emails, summarizations, whatever. I can do my pipeline can grow faster if I use AI. So that's the first one. The second one is that I should challenge my knowledge continuously. It's a learning process continuously. Don't push back. Actually, embrace new knowledge. Embrace agentic. Embrace all these changes. It is fascinating, so you have to proactively take it. The third one is hands-on. Everybody's becoming a coder.
Yeah.
Everybody. So with agentic, everybody can create an agent. So you have these low-code tools that you can basically explain what you want, like a built-out app that it can translate this document in this language right now, and you build it. So experience, hands-on experience with agentic. And the third one is the fourth one is be prepared for resistance of yourself and also your teams that will say this is too much, I'm anxious. I don't know what is going to happen with my job. Uh, and that is okay. So be prepared. How you embrace that? Increase your emotional intelligence, increase your EQ. And there are so many techniques. We have talked in the past about this, Dave. Being grateful, but also be, proactive with your, with what you do, embrace the change, and being grateful and resilient is a key component of the change. So, but it's better to be proactive with this change than being reactive and anxious. So that for sure. Those are my
Yeah.
four steps to change and become an AI first person.
Well, look, I mean, look, and for those listening out there, man, I think this is a key one. Like, if you just think, I mean, just to shape yourself, any move you make, email you write, decision you have to make, team event you're gonna just it's a culture. It's AI first, right? Like, okay, how can AI do this better? Why am I doing it this way? How can I use AI to do it better? This process, why aren't we using AI? It's like, so it's real. And then it's like whatever the four areas that Juan JC talked about underneath there, right? It all comes together. But I think as we go through this time of exponential growth, and it's not slowing down, and more agents, and we haven't even put quantum on these agents, the amount of change is going to be quick. So you really need to push yourself, and this is part of $1 trillion culture. Like, this is how you're going to sustain a
Exactly.
sort of sustain and continue to be a day one in a world that's changing. Is kind of this, I think, is another secret sauce. So there's a walk through a bunch of secret sauces on here, but that's definitely one. I was just checking to see if we don't. No, I don't see any questions. So JC, any other last thoughts you want to leave before we drop?
No, I mean, thank you, David. Again, you summarizing culture, mechanisms, people, technology, and now embracing AI. That's how we have achieved the growth. Uh, think long term and not short term is super important. I probably didn't mention that, but this culture is a think big, long term thinking. We are willing to sacrifice the short term with the long term. And yeah, and super excited to leave this new AI times that we are having in a company like Amazon. But super happy to be here with you also, David, and thank you for the opportunity. Looking forward for our next conversation. And any question that anybody has, you can reach out in LinkedIn, connect with me in LinkedIn, and open to continue the conversation.
Yeah, well, JC, continue success. I know you're very busy. Thank you for jumping on. And for those who are listening, just hey, keep an eye on Amazon. They continue to grow. They continue to leverage this culture. Nvidia hit 5 trillion. It wouldn't surprise me if over the next couple of years, Amazon's right behind them. But it's not easy, and we just walk through many ways, to build a $1 trillion company and culture. So again, Juan Carlos, thank you, and continued success at
You too.
AWS. All right,
Thank you,
thank you.
David. You too.
Bye bye.
Take care. Okay. Bye.